Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Political Smackdown. We're glad you're with us. Last week we had some technical difficulties, but we hope you enjoyed watching the very first Political Smackdown. Mike, you and Andy look like teenagers.
I think we hit a time machine somewhere, Mike. We kind of aged this week.
It's hard to believe this show's been on since 2004. And appreciate y'all were there at the very beginning and have appreciated and enjoyed your commentary.
We were a little thinner and our hair was a little darker, wasn't it, Andrew?
Mine was a lot darker.
Well, keep in mind that you can email comments or questions you'd like to hear us discuss at info@c19.tv, and we'd love to hear from you, so shoot us an email. Well, on April 3rd, Kings Mountain hired their interim city manager, Todd Carpenter, as the new city manager. We've mentioned Mr. Carpenter a few times on this show. He served as the interim county manager and then took over after the Kings Mountain city manager's contract was renewed. So, Mike, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the hire of Todd Carpenter as the city manager for Kings Mountain?
Well, obviously he's made an impression on the board in the 3 months he's been the interim manager, and apparently was willing to come out of retirement. He had over 30 years, I believe, with the city of Gastonia, and was a deputy city manager. After having been an assistant, he became a deputy city manager. I guess that just means a raise. I don't know. But anyway, he's got a lot of experience in municipal government, so he ought to be a good choice for Kings Mountain if that's what the board chose. And I think he made history, though. I'd be willing to bet he's the first Shelby High School graduate to be the city manager in Kings Mountain.
Now you're starting trouble.
I was fixing to say, I wouldn't get into Buffalo Creek on that one.
I'm just making a point.
Betsy, I do think that the fact that he had been interim county manager and now is with Kings Mountain, given the problems of the previous, I think this brings a great deal of confidence and a good opportunity for Kings Mountain and Cleveland County to have better communication. What are your thoughts on Mr. Carpenter?
He certainly has the experience, and I think that whenever like Mike said, he'd made an impression the 3 months that he'd been in the interim position, and I think they had several applicants for the position, but looking at the
several
group,
good applicants. From what I
good
understand.
applicants, yes. But I think with his experience that he'll do a good job leading Kings Mountain.
Andy, any thoughts?
Well, the only thing I've ever heard is good things about him. And, you know, after all the turmoil that's been in Kings Mountain over the years, I was really surprised they could get somebody of his stature to come over. And I think having a calm person at the wheel of government over there is going to do a lot of good for Kings Mountain. I'll be honest, Mike, and since Jim Wood was there in the early 90s,
George Wood,
excuse me, that really and truly they've not had anybody of that caliber since then. It's just been in and out and around, and it's just whoever they could get at the time. But I really think, Wes, this is a good move for Kings Mountain, and I think it's going to be a good move for the whole county as a whole.
And I think, the mayor over there was somewhat inexperienced in city government. And I think having this man, Mr. Carpenter, with all of his experience, will be able to lead and help the mayor.
Well, I agree, and I really think the stability that this brings, the communication with the county.
Oh, yeah.
And, Mike, it's not like it used to be. As goes Kings Mountain, as goes Shelby, as goes Bowling Springs, as goes all these municipalities, so goes Cleveland County. We're not as, Buffalo Creek's not as wide as it used to be.
No, Kings Mountain's certainly a big player. It's a growing city. The casino's made it even more so. It's only 30, 35 minutes from the Charlotte airport. So Kings Mountain's always been in the catbird seat as applies to location. No question about that. And I've said about Shelby, back when I served, the reason we did a lot of the things we did wasn't because we necessarily wanted to, as far as expanding the city and getting called comrade by Mr. Dedman. But
On numerous occasions.
And others.
if we hadn't have done it, I can't imagine what Shelby would be like today. That tax base was extraordinarily important for the city's future, and your county seat's health is very important for your county's health.
Well, and to expand on what Mike said, you start looking at what is going on around the casino out there at Exit 5. But you look on down at the other exits down there, there's really not a lot down through there yet. Kings Mountain is the only ones with utilities around through there, basically. When you start looking, especially at sewer, they're the only ones. They're in the middle of expansion at their Pilot Creek plant. There was a lot of discussion they were going to build a new plant around Dixon School Road, which, you know, I don't know what happened with that plan. It got maneuvered around after Tim Moore, while he was speaker, got him a pretty big chunk of money for that project. And it
Like
got shifted.
$40 million.
Yeah, then the powers that be decided to do other things.
It came in way over budget.
Yeah, and so when you start building something like that, that is a major expenditure. So there is, right now in the process of expansion of the current plant. You know, I don't know what all capacity is going to be there, but you look at what's going, just the casino itself is going to be a major sewer user there. And at some point, with all the activity, Mike's aware of it just like I am, there has been quite a bit of speculation all around, and I'm sure Betsy appreciates that with her tax bill
Right,
going up like
that's
it
it.
has.
That's it.
That's the end result of all that. So there is going to be some stuff going on down there. The main thing is all the powers that be have got to be careful that it's done, that it's the correct type of growth. It's not going to be a bunch of junk down there. Let's make it something we're all proud of.
There's no question Kings Mountain is going to grow rapidly. I think it's the next Belmont
I agree.
that we've got. Well, on April 2nd, President Trump announced that nearly all imports would soon be subject to tariffs between 10% and 49%. In response, the stock market saw the largest two-day decline in history, shedding more than $6 trillion in value. The value of the American dollar also tumbled while bond yields spiked, an indication of higher interest rates to come. At the opening bell on April 9th, the S&P 500 was down 18.9%. Later in the day, Trump announced a 90-day pause and substantially lowered tariff during the period of 10%. The only exception was China, which will be hit with a tariff of 125%, which this morning China announced retaliating to the same amount. The markets immediately rallied and ended the day up significantly and then plummeted Thursday. We're recording on Friday. Under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the president can unilaterally impose tariffs on other countries to, quote, deal with any unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States. Senator Rand Paul said this week that, again, to quote, tariffs are taxes, and the power to tax belongs to Congress, not the president. Abusing emergency powers to impose blanket tariffs not only drives up costs for Americans, but also tramples on the Constitution, end quote. Trump's 10% tariff that went into effect last Saturday remains in place, as do the 25% tariffs on auto imports, steel and aluminum, and some goods from Canada and Mexico. Trump pledged to go forward with additional tariffs on pharmaceuticals, lumber, semiconductors, and copper. Andy, was his U-turn a strategic retreat in the face of unexpected resistance, or yet another example of Trump's art of the deal negotiating strategy at work? And is Senator Paul correct that the president should not have this kind of authority?
Well, I think in today's Wall Street Journal, which, yes, as a Democrat, I do read it every day, it says the main headline above the fold, Michael, trade war jitters batter stocks. That says it plainer than anything I can tell, because markets want a certain amount of certainty. And this has whipsawed the markets more than anything I know. And I guess since 1930 with the, what was that, the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930, that truly just knocked the bottom out what was already the beginnings of a depression, made it even worse. I mean, because to be honest, it is a tax. I mean, if there's anything that the only way it's not a tax if there's no transactions taking place. I mean, if there's no transactions, there is not a tax. So that means there's nothing going on. There is no business transacted. There's no money changing hands, so you got nothing. And that's what my fear is with this. Now, I truly believe in the long run, this is going to hurt China more than us, because if you look at what our trade imbalance or our trade period, China's imports to here is way up here. Ours is down here. Ours tends to be mostly agricultural. I mean, soybean farmers all over this country, that is the biggest export we have to them. They are a huge market for us. We get everything else you can imagine. I mean, we get toys. I mean, can you imagine little Johnny is probably not going to get his G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip this Christmas because of what's going on here. Because people are not realizing the folks that are the buyers for the Walmarts, the Targets, you name any retailer, this is the time of year they make their orders, because there's such a lag. They have to go out and make those orders. Stuff has to be made. Then it has to get on literally a slow boat from China and a cargo ship on its way to a port, usually on the West Coast, and then it's got to hit a distribution point that it goes out all over the country. And that takes time. And then by the time it does get to a distribution point, it's got to go out to the various warehouses, to all these people that bought it, and then get to individual stores in everybody's towns. I mean, that's a long, drawn-out process, though, Wes, when you get to it. So it's not something that's done quickly. And this internet age, we got everybody's used to saying, right now. Mm-hmm. Well, it can't happen that way. So a lot of people don't realize there is going to be a lot of problems coming because of these tariffs, because there's such a long delay in all this. I don't see anything good happening from it anytime in the near future. A lot of people are a lot poorer because of it, and a lot of them are a lot of the people that supported Donald Trump. He's hurt his own people that put him in office. And he's also hurt a lot of people like me and Betsy that didn't support him. So it's just like a shotgun effect. He scattered it and he hit everybody with it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and come back and maybe get a different perspective from Mike and Betsy. We'll see what they have to say about it. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back. We're talking about the Trump tariffs and the announcement, then the delay, but still some continue. Mike, President Trump's 25% steel tariffs in 2018 caused domestic prices to raise by roughly 60%. His tariff on lumber coming out of Canada wreaked havoc with the print market, and that's still in effect. Give us your perspective on this specifically. Is this the art of the deal? And does
Well, in
the
Trump-
president have the
in
authority to do
in
this?
Trump's mind, that's exactly what he's doing. Is he is going to do this, and then when this happens, he's going to do that. But he's got an end game result that he thinks will make America's average people better off when it's all over. And he knows there's going to be some pain, and it got big enough, quick enough that he did back up some. And you recovered what, Andy? 60% of those week-long losses in one day when he did that. And
Then
he
it turned-
lost,
Until yesterday.
Yeah, till yesterday, we lost it all back.
well, he lost about half of it back.
No, lost it all back, I
All
did.
yesterday. Well, at any rate, well, one thing I do think is interesting is that the only Republican that West usually quotes in Congress is Rand Paul, who is the only libertarian in Congress, I guess, nowadays. But he is a free market. In an ideal world, I'm all for free markets and no tariffs. We don't live in an ideal world. We have people charging us tariffs all the time, and I'm sure Trump is pushing the needle, but he did back up pretty quick, especially over the bond market. That's what he said. It
That's
was the
what
bond
scared
market.
him.
Yeah.
Because who finances America's multi-trillion-dollar Joe Biden debt?
Oh, that's not
Oh,
just
it's
Joe
not
Biden.
Joe
It
Biden
reached its
debt.
height during him.
Oh,
It's going all
God.
the way back. Everybody's
Nothing
got a
like
piece
the
of
$2 trillion every
Everybody's
year it
got a
is
piece
now.
of that
And-
debt,
and
Mike.
Trump has
Nothing
a
like
huge
it
piece.
became after COVID and Biden.
Everybody's got a piece of that
Point
one.
is that higher interest rates make it harder for them to pay their debt. That's what I think scared him off of it quicker than anything else. But he's got 90 days now that most of it went away to most countries, and he's going to try to make these deals during that time, and we just got to let him have time and do it. And as I've told y'all privately, he's got a new name for Andy and Wes. They're panicking. They're panicking over his tariffs.
I'm just a
I think
yippie.
it's hilarious.
I like yippie better.
It'll all be okay, Andy.
Yeah. I'm gonna get me a tin can like they did back in the Depression, sit there and just rattle it as people go by.
Well,
I
if it
think-
gets too bad, I've got 2 extra bedrooms and a bath in my basement. You're welcome to come over if
Well,
it gets
thank
that
you. I
bad.
appreciate that.
Hold that thought,
Thank you,
Andy.
Mike.
Yeah.
That makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Betsy, I don't think that it can be argued that this was a plan, as many of the pundits are trying to do. The trade representative, Jameson Greer, was in front of Congress Ways and Means Committee defending the tariffs when he was told that Trump had suspended them for 90 days. What do you think? Is this a plan or a U-turn?
I think it's a merry-go-round gone wild. What a chaotic week we've had and you know, we've got a president that's gone bankrupt. How many times has he declared it? And yet it is he in his mind with the art of the deal. He's forging forward. No, I think what challenged Trump to change his mind. Zuckerberg was losing like $28 million. Bezos at Amazon was losing like 40-some million, and Musk was losing more than that, several million more than that. And these are his big buddies that helped him get elected. And
I'm sure
I think
Soros was losing a lot too.
well, not as much as probably they were, but anyway, these are the ones that he listens
Warren
to. They're the ones that surrounded him at his inauguration. It's not the American people that he listens to. And I think that, yes, it's going to hurt the American people. The price of eggs will go up again, groceries, buying cars, tires, all that. And tariffs are not good. They're taxes. I agree with Rand Paul, even though he's a libertarian. No, anyway, I just think it's going to be bad.
What is ironic about Rand Paul saying that about the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act? Congress gave the president that authority, and
But-
Jimmy Carter signed it.
And also, y'all, I am very disgruntled with Congress. I mean, they are the ones that are supposed to be able to rope in the president. And like the House passed this procedural vote that they weren't even going to take up tariffs. No, Congress needs to get up and take back control and do their part instead of just drawing their salary and coming home or taking vacations. And I know the Democrats are working to do it. Now let's let the Republicans join them.
I think we've all said essentially the same thing. The biggest problem here is Congress not doing its job.
Yes.
And giving authority to the president. We should not have a king. We should have a third of responsibility with the executive branch. I do think, one, I think tariffs are inherently bad. But I do think Trump's maneuvering, while I disagree with the way he's handled a lot of it, are going to bring down some tariffs, as we've seen from the EU and other places, that I think will be good for the economy. But I think we're 6 weeks away from knowing how this resolves, and we're going to have a very volatile stock market for the foreseeable future.
I thought it was interesting that he paused a lot of them for 90 days, which is designed to give him time to negotiate with these 40 or whatever countries that are.
But he's
wanting to
still
have
got a
different
10 and 25% new tariff on a lot of things.
Yeah, but a lot of those are from countries that were already charging us that, aren't they?
Well, and I don't really have an issue about leaving it on China because they have been an unfair trade partner for a long time.
That's true.
And I didn't really have an issue with that.
It depends on how the EU and other countries react to China
Yeah.
and that tariff, and how China reacts to them, not just us.
And about Canada and Mexico.
Well, I wish he would be fair with them because, I mean, they're
They're
on
our
our
neighbors.
borders.
He's the one that redid NAFTA.
Well, he's going to have to go back. I mean, I think he's acted foolishly with our neighbors. I mean, they're neighbors, and they've been, especially Canada, have been very good neighbors.
You know, we'll just leave it with this. My industry has struggled significantly from the tariffs in 2018, and that's going to continue. And at the end of the day, that's all I can directly relate to is my industry and how it's impacted me personally, and we're all going to deal with some of this. Anybody else?
Don't forget that
Final
Canada's
comment?
charging significant tariffs on a lot of our farm exports to them. Milk, eggs, they charge significant tariffs for us to send them to Canada.
We'll talk more about this, I'm sure, as we
And
go down the road.
It will be interesting to see if ultimately this brings down tariffs from other countries. But tariffs are bad. I'm a free trader. Let's trade on equal terms. Well, since 2018, Cleveland County has been caught up in a federal lawsuit alleging that EMS employees were not properly compensated for overtime. This ultimately stems from the 4 days on, 4 days off, 3 on, 3 off work schedule. Last week, a judge ruled that the county was fully compensating the employees, and while he did find a technical violation, he ruled that the employees suffered no monetary loss and had been paid in full. I'm sure the county is glad to have this out of the way and be cleared of the matter. Betsy, this has been going on since 2018.
Yes.
Now it's settled. Any thoughts on this lawsuit?
Well, I didn't know if the grievance would file a lawsuit or would go on up further and challenge it.
It can be appealed.
And, you know, it can be appealed if they've got the money to do it. But you're right, it goes back many, many years. And so the judge has spoken, and we'll just see what they will decide. Then, you know, that's the final word right now, and I know the county's happy with the ruling.
But Andy, this has been in the news for a while, and we've heard all kind of things about it, but now it's at least arguably settled. Any thoughts on this?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Wes. I really didn't quite understand exactly where the problem was with them.
Well, you're a Democrat.
Well,
That's
no,
to be
but
expected.
I mean, it looked to me like when you looked at it, it must have been something that was really weird about it. But it looked like they were being paid. Just what I looked into it, it looked like they were really being compensated correctly, unless I'm just missing something.
Well, and the judge obviously agreed with you. Mike?
Well, I'm sure the county's glad for it to be over. I know the previous county manager, Mr. Epley, when he was here, he was convinced that the county had done nothing wrong and that they ought to defend it and shouldn't have to pay any more. And apparently the judge agreed, and we'll just have to see if there's an appeal or not. If people were wronged, they ought to be properly compensated, but apparently the judge believed, other than a technicality, he gave them zero compensation, so he thought they got fully paid.
Right.
So apparently and hopefully it's over. You know, one of the dangers of being a local government, you're all the time getting sued about something.
All right, well, let's move on to the lightning round. Mike, start us off.
Well, I'm going to do something a little bit different. A neighboring county, Cabarrus County, that I've taken an interest in because of my involvement on the local government commission. They've been before us a lot. They have a new 3-2 Republican majority that took away an old 4-1 Republican majority in the last election. And now their chairman, who is one of the new ones, has been appointed to the state legislature as a senator, replaced Newton. And he participated this week in appointing his successor, saying he hadn't been sworn in yet. And here's what the statute that governs him says. Vacancies on the Board of Commissioners, if they occur, the remaining members of the board must appoint, meaning there first has to be a vacancy. So if he's still there, there's no vacancy. But they did it on their attorney's advice they could. Watch for the lawsuits in Cabarrus County.
It's been an interesting saga. Andy?
Well, you know, this time of year is where you have your filing deadline in the General Assembly. And when you do hit that, the calendar is slapped full of bills. I always want to find out whether there's something interesting I always slip through. And one of the bills I thought was interesting that they're proposing is if you lose your driver's license for something, DUI, whatever, when you get your driving privileges back, this bill would require you to have a special colored license plate designating that you had lost your license at some point. Now, if you are working for somebody where you have to drive their vehicle, you have to notify and have signed by your employer that he has been informed that you have lost your license and that at some point, and that you are required to have a special license plate, but you are not required to put it on his vehicle. Is that not crazy?
Who introduced that?
Some Republican.
Betsy, what do you got?
All right. You can see on your screen there's going to be a constituents-led Moore Town Hall here in Shelby somewhere on April 22nd, 7 to 8:30. Site to be announced, and you can go on and sign up for it and send in questions. This is not sponsored totally by the Democratic Party. Everybody that has questions for our representative about what's going on in Washington plan to be at this town hall meeting on the 22nd.
Well, he's been very visible on the floor. He shared a number of things on Facebook, times that he's spoken. So I hope there'll be a good attendance for that. We appreciate you joining us this week. Glad we had no technical difficulties, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week on a new edition of Political Smackdown.